Glenn, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, Glenn, you have a very interesting background. I was actually introduced to you by your book, Healthy Dad, Sick Dad, What Good is Your Wealth If You Don't Have Your Health? And that just seemed like the perfect conversation for us to dig into here on the podcast. Our audience just eats this stuff up. And I wanted to ask so many personal questions at the same time. I have my own personal struggles like anyone else, and I have young children. You've raised a few children of your own, so I'm looking for your insights there. But before we get into that, I think the first thing that stood out to me about this book was the title. It said, Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. What's that make you think of?
People ask, are you associated with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And the interesting thing is my wife's into the real estate. She's into, Robert Kiyosaki. And so she had me come along to one of her conferences. I think it was in Dallas. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all these, high power speakers, and there's a CPA, there's an attorney, and then, they have a bunch of other speakers, and then Robert Kiyosaki comes on stage, and I'm just sitting there observing, like I usually, most situations I observe, and so I'm just sitting there, and I turn to my wife, I go, what's missing on that stage? I go, they have everything that has to do with retirement. They have the guru of finance, the guru that has developed the company, Robert Kiyosaki, an amazing book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And they have the accountant and the attorney and everything. But the one missing element, I turn to her, I says, what good is their wealth if they don't have their health? I go, one of these days I'm going to be on that stage and they're going to have me 1 5-minute blip and, talking about health, because, you get to retirement age, and you've done everything possibly to retire, but the one key element that you forgot is your health along the way. Stress, the food you eat, all these little things that just creep up, and then all of a sudden, when your retirement comes, man, you're either on an oxygen tank, you're on a cane, you're using a cane to walk, you're not, you just movement is less, and that's kind of what I found with my father, which is sick dad. My biological father is the sick dad. He's a farmer. He was robust. He's just, never had any health problems until his later years. And then when he retired to his recliner, he never got out. So Healthy Dad is actually my mentor, who has taken me through the last 15 years of actually transforming my life. And so that's how it came to be. So with all the legal issues, I've got it all cleared that Healthy Dad's Sick Dad is actually my trade name, and it's all good. So.
Well, I love the title. We talk about this all the time, just how intertwined these two things are. And it's sad that there is this kind of divide, I feel like, between the wealth industry and the health industry. I have some good friends that are tying those two things together. But it is such an important thing. It's not just that these things go hand in hand or one's more important than the other. If you lose your health, you often lose your wealth. If you lose your wealth, you often lose your health. They are truly tied in to one another. Now, you had this experience with Robert Kiyosaki on stage, which I've never had the pleasure. I'd love to be able to sit in that seat myself. But that wasn't necessarily the origin story. Was that the moment that you knew that you needed to write the book, or was it something that happened prior to that?
No, the book started about 15 years ago. I just didn't know what the title was. And my story is that when I got into medical school, you just cram for everything. You're putting in 20 plus hours of studying and schoolwork, and just doing whatever you can to do to survive your first year or second year. And so I found that it was easier to eat muffins from Costco and root beer, which is cheap because your budget is very small, and so I grabbed a muffin and a root beer, and for most of my meals, and that kept me going for a little while, and then all of a sudden the crisis happened, and I find in medicine we don't do anything until that crisis usually happens. In my clinic, nobody really comes in because they're healthy. They come in because they stepped on a piece of glass, they broke their foot, they got a diabetic ulcer, whatever the crisis is. But what I see in my clinic is that there's these diseases such as diabetes and arthritis and all these things that could have been easily prevented. Now, in my case, in medical school, that kidney stone that landed me in the ER and that brought me to my near-death experience, it was an eye-opener to me. So that's really when it started. But even there, I really didn't, let's just say, that wasn't the turning point for me. I got into private practice and my lifestyle didn't change. Kids came and I had to go to work, and instead of had the opportunity to go to work, it was like, man, I got to get to work, and just dragging, and things started creeping up. And then I had a back injury that previous to medical school, but then it came for tuition and early into my practice, and I couldn't get out of bed. And I didn't want to go down the surgical route. I didn't want my back cut on. And somebody told me about this guy that, treats ailments in the lower back. And so I made a phone call and went down, and he was able to get me out of trouble. And so it was about a year before I even went back to him, but he did get me out of trouble. And then there was an incident that happened where I was at clinic, and I was sharing office with another specialty, and one of their patients had fell in a van, and he didn't have any legs, but he was about 300 pounds. And so they were frantic about, this patient had fallen in the van. And so I went in there, and my instincts were first, I grabbed that patient and lifted him up so his head wasn't torqued against the side wall. And then all of a sudden I had numbness going down my arms and shooting pains. And so I was like, oh man, I'm in trouble. And so then I really took hold of what my healthy dad was doing to me. And he made a comment to me. He says, if you don't change what you're eating, you're a heart attack waiting to happen. And so he says, the first thing you have to do is nutrition. And that's why I wrote this book, the first book that is on nutrition. I had to change what I was. I was a bag of potatoes. I was so stiff and that. So that's why this book came out. Now there's a couple other books in the future, but this one is the foundation. And there's so much other experiences I could talk on, but I'll keep it at that. But over the course of the years I worked with my healthy dad, and the first 3 years, he just talked to me about nutrition. Didn't he talk to me about the other things that I've been now certified in? And so I learned nutrition. So I changed my diet. I changed the way I did things. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is really not a diet. It's a way of life. And so I just incorporated it into there. So it changes day to day. And we probably can get into that a little deeper. But I kept telling him, I says, this information needs to get out to the world. I says, I've never heard of it in medical school. I've never heard it in my practice. And so it was about 2 years ago that he finally gave me the green light to say, okay, go ahead and write the book. And so I did. And hopefully that, that little experience in a nutshell gives you a little, but there's so much in between there that, oh man, it could fill another book. So.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the next book. I really enjoyed this one. But I'm curious too. You had 8 siblings, and so 8 siblings, and here you are focusing on health, nutrition, etc. And it seems that you're on the right path. I'm curious if that comes out of your specific experiences with your own health, from the back to the kidney stone to your allergies and asthma growing up. Was this just your experience, or did your other siblings follow in your footsteps?
No, I'm completely an oddball. I'm 8 brothers and sisters. It was interesting, around the dinner table and everything, meat and potatoes. My mom did all the cooking, and was interesting is my dad being a farmer, there wasn't a whole lot of money available. So we just ate off the land, for instance, when I had my full-time job at age 10, I mowed people's lawns, and there's an old farmer rancher that he had me mow his lawn. And after he was ranching up there in Montana, and when he got back at the end of the summer, I was like expecting like a check or some money. And he didn't give me a check or money. He gave me a milk cow. I mean, this little cow. And I was like, come on, what am I going to do with this cow? And my dad was ecstatic. But I was like, I got a cow for mowing lawns all summer. And, but in actuality, that cow produced 3 calves and it produced meat on our table. And so it was more beneficial. But getting back to, my siblings, I think, I say I'm an oddball, but I think it has to do my astrology. I don't get into that, but I'm a Capricorn. All the other ones are, I'm the only Capricorn in my family. So the Capricorn traits are just hardworking and all that stuff. But I also picked up on health and things like that. I observed my father and what he would eat after the dinner table, his candy bars and his soda pop and the cookies on the way to, driving to the farm. And I got involved in that. Yeah, it tastes good. But I was like, man, when I developed asthma, I was like, I like sports. I want to do sports. I love basketball, but every time I went to play, I always have an asthma attack. So early in my years, I mean, it's probably around 12 years old, I started to figure out how to find a cure for asthma. And so I'd ride my bike to the next town and record when I got the asthma attack and what food I ate. And so I was on a cure to find asthma. And so I had all these little experiences, but no, I was way different from my brother.
Well, you're seemingly on a mission to change the way that individuals view their health, taking care of themselves, nutrition, etc. So I am curious, is that mission working with those that are closest to you? Have you been able to persuade your loved ones, your siblings, to get on board with this?
Right before, yes, to answer your question, yes, a few of them. My older brother, he has definitely taken a hold of it. And he was he got a diagnosis of pre-diabetic. And I says, look, you need to change. And so he started to implement the things, and his wife was on board. And within a matter of months, his blood sugars went down, everything. He's fit. I mean, he's incredible. So he's really taken hold of it. My father, he listened to me for a few years, but right before the end, when he was not feeling well with probably his 3rd heart attack, he just said, look, I'm going to eat what I want to eat. So I just let him be. But he did for a while start to change. And he recognized that when he changed the subtle things, he didn't have his gout. His joints didn't feel as bad. He could do a lot more. And he was asking more questions. But I find when somebody stops asking questions, they don't want to participate. And so when somebody asks me questions, oh man, the floodgates go off, and I'm just like, I'll give you whatever you want, because they're taking the initiative and want to participate. So.
Yeah, I love a good curious mind, and that seems to be what has worked so well for you over the years. I wanted to ask you though, today, do you still have personal challenges? Are there still things that you're trying to overcome? What is the biggest challenge that you're facing today from a health perspective?
My biggest challenge is impatience, stress, just life, health-wise. I haven't had an asthma attack in probably 20 years. I go to the gym, run, still swimming. I would say I still have the every once in a while I'll get that kidney stone issue that you can start to feel come on. And so then I have to realize, okay, mainly it's dehydration. I'm just not drinking enough quality water throughout the day, because when you're seeing 40, 50 patients a day, you just don't take the time to stop and drink the fluid that is so vital. And so, yes, I do have some ailments, but for the most part, in my 50s, I am not on any medication whatsoever. I don't think last time I took an Advil or Aleve was probably 10 years ago or so. So, but I really watch what I eat. I read it before you eat it. And make sure that I get the quality of foods in me. So,
well, I asked that question because there was something that struck me that you said in your book. It said, "In nature, when you're balanced, there are no diseases." And I said, is that something we should really take literally? What about Lyme disease, salmonella, pneumonia, the common cold? And can we really stay so balanced that we will avoid all diseases?
Yes, you can. I believe it. But people think it's just nutrition. There is an element in there on stress. Stress can do more harm than bad food. And so unless you take into check the emotional side of things, and I talk, there's a whole chapter on the 5 elements that gets into that matter: anger, frustration, guilt, sorrow, which really ties in, guilt and sorrow really ties into diabetes and has a major effect of even elevating your blood sugars. There's a story where I went through a traumatic event about 10 years ago. And so I somehow run across a drug rep that did these Dexcom scans for blood sugar when it's in initial phases. I says, hey, put that on me. And so they take this little wire, stick it to your stomach, and then they sealed onto your stomach. And you can check your blood sugar without having to pick your finger. And I wasn't diabetic, but I would eat certain foods and see my sugar spike. And then I would eat like blueberries or green beans and see the blood sugar go down. And then one day I was sitting there and I was going over the experience that I had just gone through, and the emotional side had spiked my sugar. And so the emotions can cause the diseases. Now, to get back to your question, yes, I think that if your body or nature's in balance, you don't have to worry about diabetes. You don't have to worry about heart conditions. And I'm a firm believer on that. I mean, I look at my healthy dad who's well into his 70s, and he's not on any medication. The guy can outwork me. And am I saying that we, have this body that is unstoppable? No, we do have the elements that come on, but I think some of the certain diseases that we face can be easily prevented when we're younger. And that's, the book is for the 20, 30, 40-year-old that can easily change. And so when you go into retirement, I mean, I can't stop death. Death is a part of life. And I experienced that firsthand. But doesn't mean we have to stop living. I think more people worry about dying than actual living. And so, yeah, there's an element there. And the way I was brought up in modern medicine versus what I've been trained and taught, completely different. And so I look at life as, wanting to thrive and enjoy. Yeah, there's elements every day that can attack you, but why not have a sense of hope that when you hit retirement, you can enjoy your grandkids, your kids, you can go on those trips. So yes.
So throughout our lives, if we're able to maintain this perfect balance throughout our lives, maybe we avoid diabetes, maybe we avoid even the common cold. I mean, we know those individuals that have never had the flu before, the cold, in their entire lives, and there must be something to that. But the catch would be understanding balance and maintaining that balance. So first, I think we have to define what balance is, and then we need to determine how we can recognize when we're out of balance, because it has been said that we just don't know when we're not feeling our best because we don't know what that feels like.
Right. I'm glad you asked that question, because here's the missing element that I've not seen out there. Balance is what you call the yin-yang theory, okay? And I write about it in the book. And a lot of people are asking me questions on this one, is that how do I check to know that I'm in balance every day? It's simple. What is your body temperature? If your body temperature is at 98.6, then your body is able to produce the good bacteria in your intestinal lining that gives you your perfect immune system, I call it. When it falls down below that, then you start to have the yin side of problems, the common colds, the pneumonia, the weak, tired symptoms. And so you previously asked me about, is there elements within myself? Yes, I talked a little about the kidney stones that can develop, but my body temperature always is running low. So I have to really watch myself that I'm not susceptible to the colds and flus out there. But here's the interesting thing about it. In my next chapter, from yin yang to the five elements, is that when we have, like, say, pneumonia or respiratory problems, a common cold, everybody goes right to the lungs. But in there, I spell out that it's actually the large intestine. And if somebody that has a respiratory problem, fix the large intestine and the respiratory problems go away. In medical school, when I was dissecting cadavers all the time, they'd have what the person died of. And a lot of these people that died of respiratory arrest had blockages in their bowel, and I wasn't even aware of this concept. And then my healthy dad was teaching me, and then I had this one patient of mine that got sent to the ER, and he was ready to be sedated and put in the ICU. And I asked the doctor, I go, when's the last time he had a bowel movement? He says he hasn't had one in several days. I says, get him a bowel movement and watch what happens. And so I got a phone call the next day and says, hey, he had a bowel movement and we took him out of ICU. I mean, his lungs are working better. So there's a correlation on how to look in different other areas than just looking at right at that element of, say, the common cold in your lungs. But it really is based in the intestinal tract, your gut, and keeping in balance on the your immune system. So the yin yang side of it, if I have a scale in there, 0 is where you want to be, but we can't get there because, 0, the perfect thing is mother's milk or breast milk. So we like to, I always like to say between -4 and +4, there are foods in there that I have in there that say, okay, these will keep you in there. So if you're running hot, then you eat something cool. If you're running cool, you eat something hot, and vice versa. And I spell out what foods to eat in there.
I'm just pausing because that just to think my body temperature is really that important. I mean, I have always ran a lower temperature myself, high 97s, right? And I didn't know that would actually be something telling me that I'm out of balance. And I would never think that if my temperature's low, I just need, a cup of coffee?
No, well, I mean, that will raise you, and it's a good diuretic. But yeah, I mean, a good cup of tea of, yes, exactly. Drink the cup of coffee. Now, you heard me say that, but raise your body temperature. But I'd probably do tea instead of coffee because I don't drink coffee. So.
So are you checking this on a regular basis to see what your temperature is to check your balance?
I think we all get checked our temperature in this time in last year.
Yeah.
But every time you go to a clinic, they zap your head. And so, yeah, it always runs low. But no, I can feel my body when I wake up in the morning. I mean, if I'm curled up in the bed sheets, I know I'm cool. If I'm kicking those bed sheets off and I'm hot. And so you become a little accustomed. If you have more phlegm and cough, things like that, you're on the weaker side. So here's another little key element that's probably not discussed out there is look at the color of your urine. Sounds disgusting. But if you really have straight, clear urine, you're really taxing your kidneys. And so they say, like here in Arizona, you need more water versus say up in Alaska. Well, true. But if your urine is dark, then you definitely need to be getting some more fluid in you. So it should be a nice yellow film. So that's another way to check of how your body's doing. And so now you can see why I tried to get my healthy dad to convince to write this book, because these concepts were never talked about. Look at your body temperature for your ultimate immune system.
And we're talking about urine. We're talking about body temp.
Yeah.
What the heck does this have to do with podiatry?
Nothing. No, I was a trained surgeon. I did a surgical residencies. I learned how to do, cut. But the more I got into practice, I was like, that bunion doesn't need to be fixed. You just need to fix the tightness in the shoulders and things like this. And so I started incorporating things. And I've really implemented a lot of this nutritional into my diabetic patient population, and those that take hold of it. I mean, the stories I'm hearing right now, people are off their medication. They are, their blood sugars are lowered. Their doctors are saying, what's going on here? And so, yeah, I do implement a lot of the diets, for fungal toenail infection. I get them on the immune diet. And so they don't have to go on the medications. If they follow the immune diet and they change what they're doing, the fungus usually can go away. Now, it takes some time. The gout diet is really powerful on people preventing gout. And then there's a circulatory diet and all that stuff. But yeah, so the nutritional side of it, I definitely heavily implement into my practice. So yes, it does affect.
For things like this that aren't commonly discussed or taught by medical practitioners, they're not taught in medical school, it can come off to some as kind of hocus pocus. And I assume you've received maybe criticism like that in the past. How do you address that concern or question that some might have?
It's not a debate with me when you've actually seen people's life change. My energy, I utilize it to those that are asking questions. And so, yeah, if I was to have this discussion with a lot of my colleagues, they would say it's snake oil, but to literally see patients change in diabetes, literally see a bunion go back without surgery, in my practice, they say, well, why aren't you writing this in the medical journals? Well, if I had the time, I would, and maybe one day I will. But this has been my life for the last 15 years. And so I don't get into an argument at all. If they want to ask questions, then I have an open discussion, then absolutely. But I just don't waste time on arguments. But to me, it's not a debate.
As a practitioner of, say, Jinshin Jitsu, we might see some elements of that come out, but I don't see that with nutrition. I mean, it seems like nutrition should be commonplace in every medical practice, that we should be focusing on what we're actually putting into our bodies. If we are what we eat, why aren't all medical practitioners trained in nutrition? I was really kind of taken back and saddened that through medical school, nutrition was never taught. How is that even possible?
You got me. I don't know. But there wasn't even a course on nutrition. I think maybe in biochemistry to a small degree, but to actually have a course on nutrition and with the quality of foods, I didn't get it. And they not teaching it. You had more the situation of pharmaceuticals and the drugs, how to treat a problem. And so that's what you're faced with. And here's the situation, and here's the remedy. And there's a saying I have: you can't remedy lifestyle. And so, I have found that nutrition, the quality of life, the quality of foods, air, what you eat is vital. And I wish there was more discussion on this. But even like the famous keto diet that everybody's on, and there's some okay parts to that, but when I talk to patients, they're not eating the quality of the proteins and the vegetables that they can have. It's not organic. It's not grass-fed. It's not free-range. It's not wild-caught fish. So you're getting all those pesticides and chemicals in there. So another saying I have is there's chemistry's and salt on biology. Chemistry is anything that you have.
Waiting on that quote.
Anything you put into your body, chemicals, and whether it's medication. And I even had a discussion, even vitamins. High vitamin C can actually lower your immune system. So it's an assault on biology or your biological cells in your body. And so the quality of foods is vital. The quality of air is vital. The quality of your water is vital. And it goes with, the temperature of your body. So you have the optimal bacteria growing in your intestinal lining. So.
You mentioned the keto diet. So
Mhm.
Atkins, keto, gluten-free, vegan, paleo, how do we know what to believe? I mean, you said, what were we trained throughout, throughout COVID? Many would say, take high doses of vitamin C during cold season, take high doses of vitamin C. You say high vitamin C doses can reduce the immune system or negatively impact the immune system. I mean, what's fake news and what isn't? How do we know what to believe?
That's a very good question. They use the vitamin C, to help cancers, and it does help the common cold. But the problem is there's a threshold where you have too much, and then it starts to the acidity in there is just too much for the intestinal lining. And so when I see diets, I'm not here to attack any diet. The Mediterranean diet is really good, but you have the keto Atkins, but it's high protein. So what's going to happen after 6 months? How much damage to your kidney are you going to have? If you have the banana diet, or whatever, there's just so many diets out there. That's why, unfortunately, when I call the immune diet, diabetic diet, and the whole life diet in the book diets, but it should be lifestyle. And so when somebody has a poor immune system with fungal toenails, I'll get them on that particular diet that has specific things. And then when they are doing better, then I'll move them over to what you call the whole life. It's the whole life diet, which is the one I'm on. Now it bounces back and forth. And that's why I think that it's a way of life. It's not, oh, I'm going to do this diet this year and then get off the roller coaster again and do this diet and this diet. No, if you can just find a way of life, retirement becomes a clear picture in the future of having your health. So there's no roller coaster.
Common sense, whole foods.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had written about the immune diet. Is that the same as the whole life diet?
No, immune diet is there's a couple of diets. I have like 40 different diets in my arsenal. But the one immune diet I have in the book is basically for the one, that their immune system is down. They just need a boost. So it talks a little about the probiotics. It talks about some of the elements that you want into your system. And here's something interesting about the probiotics that you should be taking is your body's a yogurt factory. And so when you get the good source of sugars, sugars called carbohydrates, such as brown rice and organic oatmeal, it actually helps to grow good bacteria. Then you put the probiotics in there, such as yogurt, grass-fed yogurt, sauerkraut. That element of that probiotic will propagate every 30 seconds. And so by the time 4 hours is gone, you have the probiotics that's well into the trillions of units that is helping your system. But it's all about the quality of the foods. That the temperature and the probiotics and the good sound based sugar. And that's why I think like with the keto diet, they have no carbohydrates. Well, how are you going to grow your good bacteria in your intestinal lining if you don't have a good carbohydrate? That's the question I pose out there. Mm-hmm. And because, if they have a strong constitution of a Yang constitution, they're going to do okay. But I was there. I mean, I fought fires and everything before medical school, wildland firefighting. I was like my father who had the heart attacks and eventually died. So, I think that there's an element that if you can protect your immune system and start eating right now, that you won't have these things later down in life. So.
Well, and some already have developed them, right? They're taking medications, and you're one that doesn't take any medications. Should that be everyone's goal if they're on a medication to find a way to get off it? And if so, where do they start?
I think it is. I think that one, I'd have to work, really work with that individual. Is it a heart condition? Is it diabetes? Is it just a simple immune system? But if you can get your body into a more balanced state and, feeling better, then I think so. But, I always tell patients that, especially my diabetic patients, as you follow the diabetic diet, stay closely in contact with your doctor. Because I'm not here to say, get off all your medications, throw it out, and then just go with these things. No, I'm saying because of where you're at, So you really have to stay in contact with your doctor until you start to notice a difference in the doctor. Your physician sees a difference in your body, and then you can eliminate this medication or this medication. The problem with medications that I have found in my practice is that this one simple medication causes 3 or 4 other problems. And then you have to have another medication for that, another medication for that. I literally had a patient come to my office that was taking 25, 26 medications. I was like, that was her breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's really common to see patients come in my office with 15 different types of medications. And I don't think life was meant to be that way. I think life was meant to be to live. And like I say, we can't prevent death, but why can't we have little enjoyment and pleasure and when we live?
Do you have the same disposition with vitamins, or there's some vitamins that you think we should all be taking?
I think with supplements, I think that the more natural they are in their state is better. So for instance, I talk about a daily detox mix. And so I'll use, in that mix, it has green blue algae, spirulina, has a red marine algae, has sodium alginate, has apopectin and psyllium, and I think there's green vibrance in there. And I mix all those in a powdered form, and that's the first thing I drink in the morning if I have a strong constitution. Now, if I'm weak and tired and my immune system's down, I won't do that. But I can tell you the last year and a half, I've been doing it. I've been going to work, haven't missed a day of work, and it keeps me going because, I don't have the cough, cold, sniffles and worrying about the COVID that's out there. Yeah, it's real, but I'm not oblivious to it, but I know that when I'm taking these things that the daily detox mix, the other one is the 3 omega oils, then I don't have to go get the vitamin in the capsule. So it's more, there's also another saying, the less hands it's used to prepare your foods. And so I just go to the sources that, that's the right sources. 3 omega oils, the concentrates I talk about, and just some of the seaweed things, then popping in, regular vitamin. D3 is also another one. It's a vital, but if you're taking three omega oils, you're getting that too. So, and then the sunlight outside.
Mm. You talk a lot about diet, not as much about fitness.
Okay.
Is there one that's more important than the other?
I think that they go hand in hand. I think breathing is very important. I think that when you're doing fitness, you have to breathe, and so there's an element of body movement is life, and so the whole myopractic world, which is another discussion, is about movement, and so exercising is vital. Getting out there and being grounded, getting out of if you're in the city, what do? Well, go to the park, look at the green grass, hopefully that there's trees, look at nature, but go for a walk, just 20 minutes if you can do that. But get up out of the chair and just move. It's vital.
I would like to find someone like this, right? I would like to find someone that's going to help coach me, say, off medication, someone that's going to coach me on the right vitamins, when to take them, when not to take them, and really just look at things from a much bigger or higher level, a bigger picture, right? How would someone, if they want to work with someone like you that is going to help them with the big picture, but really put a major emphasis on diet, nutrition, where would they begin?
Well, somebody that's willing to work with them, and it taught, with my situation, I work extensively with my patients. Those that ask questions, I'll do whatever it takes to see that their questions are answered and that they're headed off in the right direction. Especially now, like the diabetics, I keep bringing that up, but man, it changes them. So. Can I change somebody over the phone? Can I change somebody from a long distance? There's some other elements that I really get into, that will, how much do I want to say? that when I really work on somebody, there is what you call a pulse diagnosis, and you listen to their body and where the pulses are doing, and it directs you to where their energy is out of alignment. And so that's where the chiropractic comes in. So you get body moving, and then you use the Jinsen Jiu-Jitsu to get the energy back in. And so there's a whole another element there. What I'd love to do is eventually, if I ever had an educational platform, teach people to do this, what I've been taught, and have many people doing this and helping people, because I'm living it. My healthy dad's been living it for his whole 40 plus years. Plus, it's just, no, I would like to see that. So I don't think I answered your question on that, but I think when somebody's interested in, like in you bring that up, your case, asking the questions, seeking out the people, I'm here to help. And if I can direct you to an area or hopefully, the problem is I don't know other people doing this.
Well, I think many maybe haven't even heard of chiropractic, and I would say almost definitely not Jinshin Jitsu. Can you just explain briefly what those two things are?
Okay, so Jinsen Jiu-Jitsu is the art of healing yourself. And I always say I'm the jumper cable. So when I place my hands on the body and I help somebody out, you're trained, you're taught to feel. And when you get that feeling, then you shift and move to a different spots. And it is the most incredible thing I've ever heard of. And there's Jinsen Jiu-Jitsu practitioners everywhere around the world. But when you incorporate a chiropractic, which my healthy dad really didn't use that term per se, even though he was trained chiropractic, his element of helping people out of trouble and crisis it'll be the second book. And if I go into detail, it's going to open up a can of worms. So it's what I experienced. It's what many people have experienced. And it is getting the energy flowing. So when you have this element of chiropractic, this element of Jinsen Jiu-Jitsu, and this element of nutrition, by understanding the person's constitution, it's a whole different world. It's not being even taught out there. So I don't want to leave anybody hanging and frustrated at what I'm saying, because that's not my purpose. But there are answers out there, and I'm working through it on how I can help more people.
Well, this is a good start. And you keep mentioning this term constitution. Can you expound on that? What exactly do you mean by constitution?
It's the person's ability. Do you know yourself? Do you really, truly know yourself? And you can pick up on a lot through the pulse diagnosis. You can pick up on a lot of people's voice, how their body language is. But do you really know who you are? And if you do, and you have that purpose of life, then there's an element in there that's incredible. But what I find is most people don't. Most people, I think with your audience, your people you work for, they have a purpose. They want to retire. They want to retire wealthy. And so there's a purpose there. But a lot of the patients I work with, and talking to even the younger people, there's no goals in their eyes. Their desires gone. So understanding who you are, this unique individual that has literally God's DNA in you, that is incredible. And we all have it. We all can become whatever we want to become. It's fascinating. And to hear, and the story where I came from was, I was told I'd never even make it into college. And so that set a seed in me by a high school counselor that I says, I'm going to go as far as I can. And when I got there, I went further. So I, became a doctor, a surgeon, a physician of the foot. And I think that there lies in everyone that element. And you just have to know who you are. And if you don't, start to do some thinking. Who am I?
Well, and I wonder if that's a good tie-in to one of our questions from one of our weekend reading subscribers. So every single Friday, we send out an email with 4 trending articles in the retirement space. And then those subscribers have the opportunity to present questions prior to actually having someone like you come live on the show. If you'd like to sign up, just go to retirewithpurpose.com. But I think this is a good tie-in question to understanding your Constitution. I'm thinking this might be one of those elements that we focus on in trying to define that for ourselves, especially at the onset. Lee asked this question. He said, how much does Dr. Glenn take into account family history in affecting a person's health? I'm wondering if we understand and dive into our family's history, does that somehow help us with the Constitution? And maybe those two things are unrelated.
Excellent question, and thank you for asking that. In the book, I talk about we have an ancestral line of 7 generations back. And, my grandpa died of diabetes, but I'm going to make a statement here. It doesn't mean I have to be diabetic. And I think that this world we live in medicine, that we have this genetic component of you're going to diabetic, so your father was diabetic, you're going to be diabetic. No. I really think that there is a emotional lineage of 7 generations back of 256 ancestors that you get to pick and choose what you want. If you find that your anger, that you have more anger in you, well, your awareness of that, change it. If you have more sorrow, well, recognize it and change it. And I think a lot of these ancestors is a part of you. You are not only the genetic makeup physically to a degree, but you're also genetically make up emotionally. So by my quest, my journey has been aware of this. And, life experiences are your teachers. How do you react to it? Do you act or do you react? And so to answer the question is that, no, because my father died of a heart attack, I don't believe I have to die of a heart attack. But do I have that element in me? Absolutely. Do I have diabetes in my family? Yes, but doesn't mean I have to go down that road. And so that's why I say you're a unique individual. And it really ties into, the 5 elements and getting really deep into that how you can actually change things and shift things by looking at something different that promotes it. I call it the mother-son relationship, or the grandson-grandfather relationship, in a direct way. And there's charts in there that goes into it. I won't get into more detail because of the time factor, but there are elements in there that can help you with your course of life. And the more you read it, the more you discover it, and the more you ask questions, I think that you'll start to expand, and this empirical knowledge will start to come to you. And then you seek out people like myself, my healthy dad, that have been exposed to this, and then you'll get little bits and pieces here, and your puzzle now gets more complete. But I'm just one little piece in this puzzle. That's all I am. But I don't know where I fit in, but all I know is I am a piece of this puzzle, of this great picture of life.
Well, I think you're providing hope in that. There's so many that I've met that say, oh, well, I won't live past 80, and never had anybody in my family live past 80. Dad died of a heart attack. Grandpa died of a heart attack. So I'm doomed of a heart attack. And I think you're proving that that's not necessarily the case. Simply knowing and understanding that should be your medicine in being able to prevent that from happening in your own life by seeking out those, such as yourself, that can specifically start playing defense against that well ahead of time. And Glenn, I'd like to ask you a couple more philosophical questions, not quite as technical. And first one is, fast forwarding 25 years from now and looking back, what do you hope that 25 years from now we see as a ridiculous practice we had in medicine?
Where I see it in 25 years from now, I hope that there's more people like myself that had been exposed to all these arts that have been silenced. Modern medicine has saved my life, but I've also seen it take lives. And we need the trauma surgeon. We need people that are so keen to putting people back together. That is an element that is so needed. But I also think that there are elements out there that especially in the pharmaceutical world, and I'm not attacking them, but I just think that the chemistry, the chemicals we put into our body hurts our immune system. So 25 years from now, I'd love to see a platform. I'd love to see people teaching this, people getting better, people taking and the initiative and taking responsibility for their own health and not relying on the doctor, not relying on having to go to the doctor to get this pill or that pill to get them better. You know, I have these 90-year-old patients that come in my office and they're like, oh, I'm 90 years old. And I says, oh, you're young. They go look at me and like, yeah. I says, I got a 17-year-old. I have a patient that's 17 years older than you. And they go, what? I go, yeah, she's still gardening. She's thriving. She's still, now she's kind of calmed down. I mean, she stopped driving a couple of years ago, but 107 years old, just incredible lady. And I want to be like her. My goal is to live to be 126. So that's one of my personal goals.
I like that. Age 126. One of my mentors is Dan Sullivan. 156 is his goal, and just simply thinking that way. That's a pretty strange practice, but I think if we think that way, we really expand our minds and ultimately extend our lifetime as well. So I love that. And lastly, I want to ask you. I mean, that's kind of strange, right? You've shared with us some strange things that maybe individuals haven't heard of before. But I want to finish with this question: what is the strangest thing that Glenn does for his health?
Oh, I drink this green goop in the morning. Daily detox. I'm like, oh man, that's probably this. That just comes off the top of my head, but it's something that I say, okay, it's hasn't killed me, but it's kept me healthy and happy, and I notice a difference. So every morning I do a strange thing, and it's that daily detox mix. And so
I want some daily detox mix. Where do I get it?
Well, right now I just have it spelled out in the book. So if I was like an entrepreneur,
You make it.
I'd probably make it and sell it to all these people, and people approach that. But you know, because I want to help people, I put in the dosage in there. I says, here's what you do if you want to make a big, jar, put it in the freezer so you can just keep, doing it every day. Spells out exactly what to do, and everything in there. So I just want to help people feel better and retake their life back.
Well, we're going to give away the recipe for free right now to those of you that act quickly. We've got a box of Glenn's book here, Healthy Dad, Sick Dad, What Good Is Your Wealth If You Don't Have Your Health? In there, you're going to find this little recipe among many other elements that I believe are truly going to help you and so many others out there. So all you have to do is this. If you want a free copy of Glenn's book, all you have to do is subscribe to the podcast, write an honest rating and review over on iTunes, and then shoot us an email at info@howardbailey.com. That's info@howardbailey.com with your iTunes username. We'll send you the book for absolutely free. It's really that easy. Glenn, thank you so much for your mission in this world. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.